This video will focus on the swamp biome, specifically in the southeastern United States. The main topics discussed are the characteristics of the biome, the fauna and flora, threats to the swamp, and different conservation efforts done to help prevent these threats from causing serious harm. Although these swamps are located everywhere around the world, they are generally found in low-lying areas near bodies of water and have standing water. Because these swamps are low-lying, they are generally found near different bodies of water which feed into the swamp. As a result, the water level of the swamp will rise in accordance with the bodies of water that feed into it, but because of the poor drainage, they will retain a higher water level during periods of dryness and drought. This helps regulate the level of surrounding bodies of water that would normally dry up or recede without the swamp during these times. Because the water is fed into an area of poor drainage, it has virtually no flow and remains still compared to other bodies of water. This provides a unique habitat that is more suitable for different types of animals and plants that rely on very moist and stable conditions to thrive. These conditions remain almost the same due to the relatively stable climate of the area. Year-round it remains moist and warm, only to become warmer and more moist during the summer. One of the unique outcomes of this still water is the buildup of dead plant material called peat. This peat is incredibly important to the environment and provides an intricate microhabitat that is perfect for amphibians and some carnivorous plants. Not only does it provide a habitat for these organisms, it also helps extend the swamp by absorbing and retaining water, causing the area to get wetter as time goes on, which is perfect for the fauna and flora that have adapted to the area. There are 5 main types of fauna in the swamps. These include amphibians, reptiles, insects, birds, and mammals. Because the water in these swamps is stagnant, it allows for the reproduction of a multitude of insect species. Some of these main species are dragonflies, mosquitoes, deerflies, a large variety of aquatic bugs, spiders, and decomposers. These insects play an important role as the main food source of the next group, amphibians. The year-round high humidity, moisture, and temperature of the swamps allows for some of the most diverse species of amphibians in the Western Hemisphere. These amphibians consist of many frogs and toads, namely the Eastern American toad, bullfrog, river frogs, and different types of tree frogs. As well as frogs, there are also many species of salamanders here. They thrive in both the swampy wetlands as well as the floodplain created by the swamps. One of the main predators of these small amphibians are reptiles. These reptiles consist of snakes, turtles, lizards, and alligators. They enjoy basking in the sun year-round due to the warm climate in this area. Some of the most common species of snake are the timber rattlesnake, cottonmouth, the copperhead, water snakes, black rat snakes, and ringneck snakes. As for turtles, there are sliders, snapping turtles, box turtles, and stinkpots. Lizards are not as common in the swamps and are normally limited to different species of skinks. The final group of reptiles is probably the most known, and it is the American alligator. The final group is the mammals. Mammals are not as species rich, but are just as diverse compared to the other groups. The most common of these being otters, deer, raccoons, opossums, and many different species of rodents. The more uncommon species consist of bobcats, red wolves, foxes, panthers, and black bears. The flora in the swamp consists of many different trees, reeds, and mosses. Some of the most iconic swamp trees are the bald cypress and the pond cypress, which are both actually species of redwoods and not true cypress. These redwoods are a great place for the second most iconic flora to grow, Spanish moss. Spanish moss is not actually moss, but is an epiphyte or an air plant. It gets all of its nutrients by itself and only uses the tree to get more sunlight by being higher up. One of the most common mosses that is truly a moss is sphagnum moss. This moss provides a great habitat for small amphibians and reptiles and also comprises most of the dead plant matter in peat. One of the most common plant groups in the swamps are the aquatic flora. These consist of water lilies, carnivorous pitcher plants and Venus flytraps, and many different types of reeds and a variety of algae. Humans cause a lot of damage through logging, draining, agriculture, and the possible future harvesting of peat for resources. Since humans have populated the swamps, logging and draining has been a huge environmental issue to the swamp biome. By deforesting the swamps, they kill a lot of species that would normally inhabit the trees of that area, and as a result, many bird species have declined. Another problem with deforestation is that normally the swamps would be drained and cleaned out, which destroys the entire ecosystem and normally renders it impossible to rebuild itself. Fortunately, there are conservation groups such as the Worldwide Fund for Nature, which works towards educating the public about the importance of ecosystems like the swamp and how it should be protected. Deforestation for agriculture has receded compared to when farming first spread everywhere, but it still poses a threat to the ecosystem with runoff chemicals. Another potential problem might be the peat harvesting. Peat is high in carbon and can be used for fuels, and if it is harvested commercially, it would decimate the ecosystem due to the extreme long time it takes to build up the peat, and it would also destroy the whooping crane population, which relies on the peat to make its nest. Another problem is the unnatural flow of water through man-made dams and aqueducts. By altering the natural flow of water, it can cause the water levels of the surrounding areas to either flood the swamps or completely dry them out. There are natural threats as well. These include global climate change and the invasive species. The reason why global climate change is not good for these areas is that as the water level rises from the ice melting, it can cause an influx of water into the mainland. This can potentially drown out swamps completely by connecting it to bodies of water such as rivers and lakes. The other huge problem is invasive species, namely pythons and boas. These snakes have been released into the wild and completely decimate any population of animals that they are big enough to consume. There have been many efforts to catch and eliminate these species, but since the swamp closely resembles their original habitat, they are able to thrive and reproduce given the chance they find a mate. Another problem is the overpopulation of alligators. Once endangered, there was a conservation effort to help the numbers bounce back, and they did just that. Now they run rampant all over, and although they are not invasive, they are still overpopulated, and because they're still protected, they will probably remain that way for a long time. As you can see, the swamp is a very fragile ecosystem that, when disturbed, can cause it to collapse. By educating the public about these swamps, people will be more inclined to help, protect, and preserve these diverse environments.